Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the Newcastle United live interviews. And I've got Michael Chopra with us again tonight. Good evening, Michael.
Well, good morning, Steve. How are you doing?
Good morning to you. Good evening to me. And good evening, everybody who's watching this in the UK. And a lot of happy people tonight, Michael, because the Premier League's back.
Yeah, I think it's great news. Obviously, with what's been going on in the world, obviously the German league come back a couple of weeks ago, and for the biggest league in the world to then get the go ahead to go and start again, it's fantastic news. It's just a shame that the supporters of the teams can't be at the games, but there's no better feeling than watching a game of football live on TV as well and watching your team. But look, it's life. We've got to get on with it, and hopefully as fans you'll still be able to enjoy every moment. But the main thing is, like you said, the Premier League is actually back, and they've got to go ahead, and the games are going to be live on TV as well.
Yeah, no news on the fixtures yet. Obviously, that's going to take a little bit of time to sort out, and I'm supposing the TV networks, so Sky obviously will now be working out which games they're going to televise and having a look at the fixtures. So no news on Newcastle's fixtures yet, but that will come as I would imagine over the next few days. Tom Lynch asks the first question. He says, now that the Premier League date is confirmed, do you think there'll be movement on the takeover? Do you think that would have had any effect on it, Michael? Do you think that, probably because the Premier League have been dealing with that's been an additional reason why there's been a delay on Newcastle's takeover?
Possibly. Obviously, the Newcastle takeover to the Premier League is just a small cog of the wheel. It's not a major thing to them. A priority was to get the league back up and running. Speaking with the government and how they can do that, and thankfully they've done that. Now I think one of the next questions will be given the go ahead of the takeover. And look, they would have been looking at it a little bit, but look, they know what's going on. They know how much Newcastle fans want this to go ahead, and whatever's trying to stop it, the people that are trying to sabotage the deal, I don't think it'll stop it. You know what I mean? I think the Premier League are well capable of looking into detail into everything that's going on. And look, the Saudis coming into the UK, the Saudis coming into the Premier League, it'll be massive for the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? There's then talk about them buying the TV rights in Saudi, and that's more money for the Premier League. They've got to look at it on that side as well. Do you know what I mean? There's more money coming into the English game.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I mean, we've talked about the way the media have handled themselves throughout this, and we know the reason why. We know that clickbait is an essential part of making money for newspapers. But I mean, I couldn't believe what the Guardian did, and I mean, if it hadn't been for one of our regular watchers, Ferry Hill Mags, who's a pal of mine, he texted us and said, "Steve, have you seen the Guardian article?" And I've got to be honest, I hadn't. I was spending a bit of time with the family. But what he'd done there, he'd actually done the research, not me, and found the article in the Guardian was a replica almost of an article that had been written by the same journalist 2 weeks previous, and all they'd done was add a minor point to it. I mean, it's lazy journalism, isn't it?
Well, it is. It's unbelievable. If they're trying to get the point across, they'll try 1 week, and then they'll try and twist it the next week and just add 1 or 2 words. But they're clever because they'll use different words that mean pretty much the same thing, and they'll try and get people to ask questions. And obviously Newcastle fans, they'll all come on Twitter and they'll start asking you questions. What's this all about? What's that? And I was the same, Steve. I asked you, have you seen the Guardian? And you corrected me and said, well, it's the same article that happened a couple of weeks ago, and you're right in saying that. And look, it's just people out there trying to sabotage the deal. They don't want Newcastle United to be a massive club, you know what I mean? And that wouldn't surprise me if Mike Ashley's part of it as well. Do you know what I mean? Amanda Stalvey, the Reuben brothers, and the Saudi group that paid the 18 million up front. If the takeover doesn't go ahead, they lose it. It's money for Mike Ashley. You don't know if he's part of it. Do you know what I mean? There's all conspiracy that could look into it. But look, anything that comes in the press now is nonsense. Do you know what I mean? Nothing can. Me personally, I don't think anything can stop this deal.
No, me neither. More mischief in the papers again today about people waiting in the wings, and as I say, it's literally just a repetition of stories over and over again. So And of course, we'll see this until the takeover is announced and it's done. So there's nothing that we can do to stop that. Then they'll move on to something else, you know. So unfortunately, there's two big stories in the news, and that's COVID-19 and Newcastle United's takeover, and we've just got to get used to it.
Well, yeah, there's always Newcastle United are always going to be part of the news now because it's such a big deal and it's involving the royal family of Saudi Arabia. But you're right in saying that they're always going to be talking, and then there's other people waiting in the wings. Why wasn't these other people that were waiting in the wings? Why weren't they not here 6 months ago? Why were they not here a year ago? Why all of a sudden they're trying to buy the club, the football club, when the bid's already been accepted and things like that, when it's so far down the line? It's just crazy, Stephen. When you read this sort of thing, it makes you laugh, and you're just thinking, why are people doing this? Do you know what I mean?
100%, mate. Adam Anderson asks, how was your time at Kerala Blasters Football Club? What made you decide to play out there?
The main thing was me being half Indian, Steve. Kerala Blasters is an Indian Super League club, and they formed a new league in 2014, or I think it was 2014, yeah. And I wanted to be part of a legacy. And I remember before the league had got set up, David James was going to be the manager of the team, and he called me up and asked me if I wanted to be part of the team and that sort of thing. He told me the plans of the club, and it was basically going to be like the MLS was, where it's a draft. I said I wanted to be part of it. I know David James from the UK and that sort of thing. But one thing about playing in India, Steve, and it was a real eye-opener, and it made me change as a person and become a better person. When I was in the UK playing football, I thought I was better than everything. I thought I was better than the next guy next to me. I thought I was better than the law. And I thought I was untouchable. And when I went to India, it made me realize what life is all about, and it made me appreciate what life is. And you're living in a 5-6 star hotel, and then you're walking out the door and you've got people living on the streets that have got no legs, have got no arms, and in a way it's sad, but I think that needed to happen to me. I needed to really appreciate what life was all about, and realistically to be grateful for what I actually had.
Great stuff, mate. Great stuff. John Paul says, what was Big Al like in the changing rooms before derby games versus Sunderland? Did he get players wound up? Obviously, you played in that fantastic game that Newcastle United actually replayed at the weekend, the 4-1 win at the Stadium of Light, and of course, he came off the bench and scored.
I think going into derby games, obviously being in the city, Newcastle's a small city, do you know what I mean? And the players know how much games mean to them, especially derby games, your local rivals. So it wasn't a case of Alan Shearer getting in the change room and trying to get the lads pumped up and all that. The players were pumped up. If something needed said, Al would say it. And if he knew that some players weren't fully focused or didn't have their eye on the ball, he would let it know. Do you know what I mean? That's why he was the England captain. He wasn't England captain just because of being the record Premier League goal scorer and stuff like that. He was a captain because he was a leader, and you could see it in the changing rooms. If things weren't going right, he'd let players know, and he did that when we were getting beat 1-0 at the Stadium of Light. He come in and rocked a few players, and you could see a totally different game in the second half. And that's why Alan Shearer is Alan Shearer, because he's a leader and he knows how to get the best out of players.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah. Joe McMillan says, what is Chops doing with himself now that his footy career's over?
Well, Steve, I was doing a bit of TV work in India, doing the Champions League games, and I was doing a conference, and I got chatting to the head of Ajax. He was on the same conference in India, talking about the Ajax setup and how to improve the game in India. And we got chatting. He introduced me to his mate, who's a football agent, and he asked me to work for his agency in Amsterdam. So I decided to do that. And then as things progress, you move some players, you get to know people. And I decided to come out to Indonesia and to Jakarta because it's a massive market that's not been touched. So at this moment in time, I'm in Jakarta, and I've been speaking to the sports minister and the president Jokori, and we're trying to improve grassroots football, because there's no grassroots football. There's no kids football like what it is in the UK, where you get up on a Sunday morning and you go and play your football, and then you look forward to training midweek. There's nothing like that. So I'm trying to implement my plans, what they do in the UK, bring it out to Indonesia and try and do it that way. I've also been asked to be an ambassador for a charity called Football for Peace, which is all about different cultures coming together. If there's been trouble between two countries, you try and bring them together by having a football match. And you've got people like Pope Francis, the Prince of Monaco, all these big people that are involved, Prince William's involved in it. So at this moment in time, we're bringing that to Asia, and we're trying to get the countries out here to come together as a Football for Peace community and ambassador as well. So I've got a lot of things going on at this moment in time.
Good stuff. And you're a family man as well, mate. It takes up a lot of time.
Yeah, it does take up a lot of time. You've got to try and mix the two. Work, I would call it work, and then you've got to mix it with pleasure as well. Do you know what I mean? It's hard work, but I'm still involved in the football world, which keeps me happy.
Yeah. Steve Hutchinson says, I wouldn't be surprised if the Premier League checks haven't even started yet. God, don't say that. It's going to happen. You've got to be patient. Easier said than done. I do think the checks will have started. I certainly think they'll have started, Michael.
I believe so as well. I think this is probably going into the second month, isn't it, Steve? Since when the papers got lodged with the Premier League. So I don't think the Premier League would have just fully said, look, we're not looking into it until the Premier League sorted. I think they would have looked into it, but they wouldn't go fully into it. They've signed NDAs, so they can't say anything about it. You know what I mean? Until the people, the parties that are buying the club, they're the ones that can say it. The Premier League have no right in saying anything at all. So I think as far as saying that you don't think they've been looked at, I think that's a little bit too much negativity.
Yeah. Andy Roberts says, do either of you think Matty Longstaff is going or staying? His contract really needs to get sorted. My opinion is he'll stay as long as we get new owners and he gets a contract that he thinks he deserves. I mean, some of the figures that I've heard mentioned as far as his wages are concerned are, it's no wonder he's talking about potentially leaving. So I would think he'll stay if the new owners come in. If we end up with Steve Bruce still as manager and Mike Ashley still there, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke to his brother Sean, and I've spoke to the agent, and he wants to stay at the football club. He's a Geordie, do you know what I mean? And being a Geordie, you want to play for your hometown club, and there's no better feeling than playing alongside your brother as well. Do you know what I mean? And at times he was running the show, so he's proved that he's good enough to play in the Premier League. But when you've got owners like we have at the minute, do you want to play for a football club where there's a lot of uncertainty, and you're fighting relegation every season? I don't think so. I think Matty is a player that has got a lot of ambition, and I believe and I know there's a lot of big clubs interested in him. But you're right in saying that if the current owners are still there, then I don't think he'll sign a new deal. But it's one of those times, isn't it? Because I think the 1st of June is when players can officially sign for the teams. Obviously, the 1st of January, he could be speaking to clubs and sign a pre-contract and give him credit. He hasn't done that, which means he wants to stay at the football club. So hopefully in the next week, when the takeover happens, I think he'll be one of the first people to get spoken to and be given a new deal.
Craig Foster says, when Linton came in to sign you, did you at any point think you couldn't do it because you support Newcastle United? Did that ever come into your mind, Michael?
It did actually come into my mind. Pretty much the very first phone call I had with Roy Keane. He knew fine well how much I was a big Newcastle fan, how much it meant to me living in the area and stuff like that. And it did. As soon as I come off the phone, I said to people, I can't do it. I'm Newcastle through and through. It would be too hard. And then I spoke to fellow professional players, spoke to my agent and family, and they said, look, you got to think about your career. You can't think about who you support and think about what your mates think of you and stuff like that. So it was a long, hard think, and after discussion with a few important people in my life, I decided that I wanted to play in the Premier League again. Because look, Steve, I'd done well at Cardiff the first time round when I left Newcastle, and I could have been poor the next season for Cardiff, and the chances and my dream of playing back in the Premier League, it could have disappeared. So at times you only get one chance, and whether it was Sunderland or not, I knew I had to take it. And one of the reasons was mainly because I wanted to work under Roy Keane, and Roy Keane's worked under the best manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, and I wanted to learn from him because you never know what could happen later on in my career if I became a coach or a manager. You might need these people for advice, and you might need their knowledge as well.
Yeah, 100%. Tom Dixon says, Michael, did you ever get booed during a football match? And what did you think of it?
Yeah, when I went back to St James's Park with Sunderland, and I was warming up, and I was running down towards the Gallagher, and I used to have season tickets in the Gallagher, and it was brilliant, and the atmosphere was fantastic, and I'd never ever thought that I'd be warming up for an opposition, running down towards them, and I just kept my head down, Steve, and I was just running, and I could hear these bottles and lighters and coins and elastic bands getting thrown at you and things like that, and I was chuckling inside myself, do you know what I mean? Because deep down, I'm a Newcastle fan, and things like that, I can't help with what's happened in life. I would have loved to stayed at Newcastle for my career, but it didn't happen. But then you have to take it on the other hand as it's only banter with the fans, do you know what I mean? You see them in the street the next day, and they're having a laugh with you and that sort of thing. So there was one time, the Newcastle, and then obviously when I went to Middlesbrough, and I was playing for Sunderland at Middlesbrough, and they were singing songs about my ex-wife and all that sort of stuff, do you know what I mean? Trying to put me off the game, and we won 3-2, which was the main thing, do you know what I mean? To shut them up. It's the best way to shut people up is by scoring goals and winning games. So yeah, a couple of times I've not just booed, I've been battered.
Jack Taylor says, what was the favourite moment of your career, Michael?
I've got a couple, Steve. Obviously, the Newcastle Sunderland game, that was a great moment, great feeling. And also when I played for Cardiff against Swansea, scoring the winner in a local derby. There's no better feeling than playing in special games, and people called me a special player at times because I came out and produced in the big games when it mattered. So yeah, I don't have best goals and goal of the season and stuff like that. I just have special moments. Obviously, the one that stands out the most is pulling on the black and white shirt for the first time against Everton in the Worthington Cup, as it was called at the same time. Same time was when Wayne Rooney was on the pitch as well. There was a comparison between me and Wayne going into the game, who's the best youth player and that sort of thing. But yeah, they're probably the best moments. Playing for Newcastle is a special moment.
John B says, if you weren't a footballer, what would you have liked to have done?
This is one question that I struggle to answer, Steve, because when I was growing up as a kid, everything was just football. It wasn't like how it is now, where my little boy, who's 12, I've given him the option. You play football, you do tennis, you do cricket, and then you choose whatever you want to be. With me, I always wanted to be a footballer, and when I was 15, I think it was, I pretty much agreed a contract with Newcastle United, that apart from I didn't get a bad injury, then I was going to sign for the football club. So going into exams and going to school, I didn't really take much notice. I was just sitting there with the pencil and just writing my name on an exam piece of paper and not filling it in. I just had so much determination that I was going to be a footballer. And every Friday I would leave school and go and train with the youth team and travel with them on a Monday for the reserves, and this was at the age of 15. And if I did have an injury or I didn't make it as a professional, I honestly don't know what I would have done. When I went to Ipswich, when I was gambling to take my mind off things and to try and come away from that, I spoke to the football club, and I went to college in Ipswich, and I'd done a mechanics course, and I got a degree or something in mechanics. I just was fascinated by cars and engines and that sort of thing. So if I wasn't a footballer, I might have went down the route of doing something with cars.
Okay. Joe says, any players in Jakarta good enough for the Premier League?
I've only seen a couple of games. The games I've seen, it's an okay standard. I wouldn't say they're good enough. A lot of foreign players come and play over here. A lot of Brazilians and that sort of thing. So you've got a couple of South American players that could possibly play in the lower leagues in England. But there is an option where I believe that, let's just say Newcastle United did get taken over. I honestly think that they need to take an Indonesian player or an Indian, not so much an Indian because they can't play for the club because of the consign, because of the FIFA ranking. But I would take one or two of the players and bring them to Newcastle and train them, show them that you're willing to help the country and willing to help the players, because you're going to get a massive following for the football club. And you've already seen it at times where fans in Saudi have changed their club who they support on Twitter from Man United to Newcastle, and that's just from the ruler of the country buying a football club. And if you've got one player, young player, training with Newcastle for a month, you get all the population following Newcastle, and it would be great for Newcastle, and the fan base for the football club would be massive as well. Do you know what I mean? Everything would just expand, and revenue into the football club, shirt sales, everything, it would just go through the roof. So that's how I would see it. And talking about players are good enough, I don't think they're good enough at this moment in time because they're probably not getting the right coaching.
Yeah. Tom says, what's the situation in Indonesia because they were banned?
He's obviously done his research, Tom. There was a lot of corruption in Indonesian football a couple of years ago, and a lot of games were getting fixed, and a lot of it was done with the Football Association. They were behind it, PSSI. So I think they had to get rid of the full delegation that were behind it and bring a whole lot of new people in. FIFA said to them that we're going to ban you for so many years from actually playing football at all, which would have hurt them. Do you know what I mean? Because I've been to games out here and the fans are so passionate about football. A lot of times away fans aren't allowed to travel because there's too much trouble, there's too much violence. But the fans out here are brilliant. So yeah, that's the reason FIFA banned them, because there was a lot of corruption going on. Obviously with the leagues and lower leagues and young players over here, they get a lot of money and get offered a lot of money, and you take it. You know what I mean? They're not sensible enough to say no to it.
Yeah. John Barnes says, all right, Michael, with players you have played with, make your best five-a-side team.
This is interesting. Obviously, striker, you've got Alan Shearer. Goalkeeper, you've got Shay Given. I would say defender, you've probably got Jonathan Woodgate. Woody was one of the best defenders I've seen. Up until he got that thigh injury for Newcastle, he was a standout performer. He was on the verge of being a superstar for England. I believe he was better than Rio, better than John Terry and Ledley King. I would say midfielder. I played with a midfielder at Cardiff City, a guy called Steve McPhail, and he used to play for Leeds United, an Irish boy. And his left foot was unbelievable. He pretty much a lot of things I'd done for Cardiff was down to him. And I remember reading a quote of what Steven Gerrard had mentioned when Gerrard was playing for Liverpool against Leeds, and he said Steve McPhail was that good that he knew he was going to be a top player, and he says that he couldn't get the ball off him. And probably the fifth player would probably go out to my mate who I lost a couple of months ago, Peter Whittingham, which was fantastic, so down to earth, left footed again, brilliant. Came through the ranks at Aston Villa. I played with him through the youth team against him, and you could see he was going to be a top player. It's just a shame that he didn't play as many games in the Premier League. But when I was at Cardiff, them two players pretty much made me the player that I was at Cardiff City. So they're probably the five I would have.
Great stuff. Taz, what advice would you give to my youngsters who are both promising football?
What advice? I would just let them play as much as possible. You've got to enjoy the game. Don't put too much pressure on them, because you get a lot of parents these days that think it's so easy and they see the money that they can make and that sort of thing. And if you put too much pressure on a kid so early, it'll destroy them. It'll destroy their career. And always you've got to look after them. Do you know what I mean? You've got to give them the right mindset. Don't always go out drinking. You've got to try and get them focused on what they want to do and what they want to do in life. Do you know what I mean? And the top players are mentally focused. They know what they want to achieve, and they want to strive, and they always keep working hard. Never ever keep working hard and keep practicing, because even to this day, I'm always learning new stuff. And whenever I'm playing with my little boy, you're always practicing, and you can never ever not become a better player, and you can never become a better person in life. So I would say always practice, because practice makes perfect.
Yeah, good advice. Good advice. Joe Walker says, as a boy, what was it like when Newcastle wanted to sign you on full-time basis? And did you nearly go anywhere else first?
I think it was when I was 9. I was playing for Montague Boys Club, and John Carver used to be part of the setup at Montague. I'd scored a lot of goals as a kid. I first started out as a winger, but then when you get in the little paper cuttings in the papers, you're seeing other people get mentioned in the paper, and you want to be there. You want to get mentioned. So I said to my dad one day, Dad, I want my name in the paper. And he said, well, the only thing you can do is to score more goals. So I said, right, okay. So I went in a couple of weeks later, and I said to the manager, I want to change my position. I want to play as a striker. And he was like, oh, you're too small to play up front. You're too small. Just stay on the wing. You're nippy, you're quick. Just get the balls in, whip them in. And it was ever since then, JC and them sort of people really took notice of me. And I came through the academy, and I think it was when I was 13 years old, there was myself and another boy, Mark Atkinson, who was brilliant at the time. He's actually a youth coach at Newcastle United at this moment in time. And we were on the verge of going up to Glasgow Rangers for a trial. And JC found out. And JC rang my dad up, and he was like, Minty, what the fuck's going on, and that sort of thing. And my dad was like, what do you mean? He was like, I've heard Chops is going up to Rangers and this sort of thing. And my dad put a block on it straight away, do you know what I mean? And stuck to JC, was like, he's a promising player, we'll look after him, and what does he want, and this sort of thing. So then I decided to stay at Newcastle. And it wasn't, I think it was when I was about 14, Steve. Newcastle were touch and go whether to give me a contract. They were on the verge of releasing me. I spoke to Peter Kirkley, who was at Middlesbrough at the time. Peter said to me that if Newcastle release you, we'll take you straight away. But once I found out that my dad told me that I had to work a lot harder in training and do a lot more things, I decided to knuckle down and stick in, and I got a new deal. And then when I was about 16, I spoke to Steve Highway at Liverpool, and he was their head of youth and brought a lot of good young players through the club. And they were desperate to sign me as a 16-year-old at Liverpool. And at the time, I knew that if things were going well and how they should be for my career, then I'd have a good chance of making it as a professional for Newcastle. So I decided to go again, sign up for Liverpool and sign for Newcastle and go into the youth team setup at the age of 16, 17.
Yeah, good stuff. Nicholas, what was Michael's favourite Newcastle top?
I loved the green with the blue pinstripes. I loved that one. I like the shirts with the Newcastle blue star on it. Obviously, you've got the grander collar ones. I remember watching the Newcastle game against Sheffield Wednesday when you had the hoop shirt, and I would love them shirts to come back. Do you know what I mean? With the old style black and white tops, some of the old style grander collar tops, rather than these tight strips that are fitted to every player. Do you know what I mean? I would love for some seasons for them to go back in time and to bring them tops back out. Obviously, you've got one of the special tops on that bring a lot of memories to people. But yeah, I like the old style shirts, the grander collars, and I love the green one with the blue pinstripes. The only thing bad about it is it used to click like mad. Whenever you'd done a slide tackle on the pitch, it would have a big click mark. You'd have to get the scissors out and cut the clicks and stuff like that out of it.
Kirk, someone wants that loafing if I haven't turned the first page on the takeover documents. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. Definitely not. Tom says, Stephen Michael, do you know how many people from the Premier League will possibly be doing the Premier League checks? Hopefully, if they have sailed through the checks. I'm not sure what the situation is. Oh, really? I mean, we don't know who's doing them and how many people are doing them. It's all just guesswork even on the presser side.
Yeah, you're right in saying that. How many people are involved in the Premier League? Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. You could chuck it up in the sky and catch a lot of things. You don't know. You don't know how many lawyers have been involved. You don't financial people, accountants, solicitors. There'd be loads of people involved. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not small. It's a massive thing. It's like a 350-page document that they've got to go through, and that's about a plan of a club. Well, that's going to be for so many years. Do you know what I mean? And they've got to stick by it, and they can't just accept a bid and let Tom, Dick, and Harry run the club. Do you know what I mean? It'll look bad on the Premier League, but I believe that there'll be loads of people looking into it. Do you know what I mean? It's a big document, and all the small print that's got to be checked, all the wording and everything. It's got to be done properly.
Yeah, 100%. Lee says, do you think Newcastle should target younger players with quality rather than people past their sell-by date?
I think you've got to have a mixed bunch of lads. Obviously, I go back to when I was playing for the club. We brought in young players. We brought in Titus, Kieran Dyer, Jermaine Genus. Obviously, myself was on the fringes. Darren Ambrose was there. James Milner was at the football club, and you had Stephen Taylor, Peter Ramage coming through the ranks. Then you had the old heads, likes of Gary Speed, Steve Harper, Alan Shearer. Yeah, I think you've got to have a mix of players in the football club. If you have a group of players that are young, then I think it'll be hard for them to fully get their act together and to have a go with each other. Do you know what I mean? You need somebody in the dressing room that isn't afraid of anyone to really give you a good kick up the backside. So I believe that you've got to bring good top class young players, not average young players that the club have brought in past seasons. I think if you want to go out and bring good young players, and you've got to bring them in with good quality, and you've got to bring it, like I said, if you see or given a striker, somebody like Cavani, who's on a free transfer, that's been around the block and can still score goals, you bring him to the football club because he could do a job for a year or two, and then he can help the younger players coming through the football club. Do you know what I mean? When I was coming through, I had Alan Shearer to help me. Some of these young players coming through the football club, they've got Joe Linton. Joe Linton's not going to help one of these young players. He's 23, 24 himself. Do you know what I mean? It's hard for these players. You need somebody with an old head trying to guide you and trying to bring you through and put you on the right path.
Yeah. During your football career, what was the worst injury that you had in football?
I was very, very lucky. I never really had a bad injury. My ankles were horrendous. I used to roll them all the time, but then you could bandage them up and tape them up and get you through games. I had a couple of bad injuries at Sunderland where I was taking local anaesthetic in my ankle and in my heel before the game and at half time. And then it wasn't really until towards the end of my career when I was playing at Alloa and we were playing on 3G, and I twisted my ankle and I damaged a lot of the bones in my ankle, and I needed an op. I didn't want to have an operation. I tried to get through it, but it got to a point where you have to say enough's enough, and you have to say, right, let's go and see a specialist and go under the knife. So yeah, I've only had one operation on my ankle, and that was when I was probably 32 years old, 33 years old, I think it was. And that was pretty much when I was coming to the end of my career. So touching wood, and thankfully that I was very lucky that I didn't have a serious injury like some footballers do.
Yeah. John, because you obviously played under some top managers and managers who you enjoyed playing for, but which manager did you least enjoy playing for?
I think one of my least enjoyables was Graham Souness. I was a young kid coming through the football club, and I was playing reserve team football, and one month we had a lot of injuries at the football club, and as a striker, I think I don't know if Court was there, Lua, Shola, Alan was out, and I was scoring a lot of goals for the reserves, and I said to Graham at the time, I says, is there any chance of getting a game? I've just scored X amount of goals yesterday in the reserve team match, and I've been doing extra training with Dean Saunders, and he could see it. I was desperate to play, and he basically said to me, just said, look, you can score as many goals as you want for the reserves. It doesn't really count. And I was like, well, what do you mean it doesn't count? I'm playing against pros that have played first team football and are coming back from injury. I'm playing against young kids that are very promising. And basically said it didn't count, and it was devastating. And when I walked out the room, I rang my agent straight away, and I basically said to him, I said, look, I don't want to be at Newcastle United for this season. I want to get myself out on loan and go and enjoy my football at a proper football club with a manager that wants me.
Yeah. Another question here from Kevin Thompson. Now, I think you answered this on Instagram, but this is a non-football related tea party. So what celebrities or people from the past would you take on a night out, but they're not football players?
I'm quite big into boxing. So, and obviously with my past history, I'd have Ricky Hatton there. Ricky likes to drink. I used to party quite a lot. Obviously, Mike Tyson would be one as well. I find him fascinating through what he went through as a boxer and throughout his career. And another one is the movie star Liam Neeson. I love his acting. I love his films. Taken was probably one of the best movies he's ever done, and it was brilliant the way he goes on and conducts himself and how he acts. So I think them three are probably the three people that I would go to a tea party. Apart from Ricky and Mike Tyson, might have a bit of a scrap.
Lee Ellison says, hand on heart, could you look back and say you fulfilled your potential, or is there regrets, Michael?
Nah, Steve, I don't. And it hurts me a little bit, but I don't think I did fulfill my potential. As a kid coming in the youth team, I was fulfilling everybody's potential. And then it got to the first team, and I probably had too much too soon. I believed I was better than anybody else, and I should be given a chance. And when I was given a chance, I didn't really kick on and that sort of thing. Obviously, I had a few disappointments. The disallowed goal against Blackburn Rovers, the penalty miss against Everton, it knocked me back a bit. So looking back as a kid and what people were was saying I was going to be as a player and what I believed I was going to be, I didn't really fulfill my potential, and it hurt me a bit because I had basically everybody in Newcastle talking about me, and it's just a shame that I didn't give them the sort of the reputation that I had, and they could see that I had as a kid. Obviously, when I left and went to Cardiff, a lot of people seen what I was about, but it was too late. I wasn't playing for Newcastle no more. So yeah, you do have a little bit of regret, but it's life. You've got to move on with it. You can't really do anything about it. Do you know what I mean? You've got to look to the future now.
Yeah. Tom Dixon says, Michael, if you trained Joe Linton, what would you say to him to help him improve and score goals? How would you tell him to approach the game? You've watched him a lot, I know that. So, what would you?
I think as a striker, you're judged on scoring goals, and scoring goals gives you confidence. And if you're going into games and you're low in confidence, you've got no chance of scoring goals. I've been in the same position. I've gone 10, 15 games without scoring, where I've scored 2 or 3 hat-tricks in previous games before that. And as the games get on and you're getting a chance and you're missing it, and then you're thinking to yourself, well, this is my day, next game I'll score, and it doesn't go your way again, then it does really play on your mind. And especially with the price tag he's been given, a lot of people expected a lot more things from him. I've seen him play in the German league, and I was very surprised Newcastle United paid that amount of money for him, because I didn't really see him being a Newcastle number 9 and scoring goals. So yeah, it's hard because you're judged on scoring goals, but then you've got to look at it and think, right, well, the team he's playing in, not really an attacking team. He's up there on his own. You're playing in a defensive team. Would he be a different player if he was playing under a Sir Bobby Robson or under a Kevin Keegan team where you're attacking all the time and you've got chances to score goals? Joe Linton's probably getting one chance a game to score a goal, and if he doesn't score that goal, then everybody's on his back, and I was on his back as well. Do you know what I mean? Because he's been brought in to score goals, and you know yourself, I knew myself as a striker, you get one chance, you've got to stick it away, and you don't really get them chances in the Premier League. So look, he'll be practicing every day in training, scoring goals, trying to find that magic touch again, but training's different to a match day. So to improve, I think he's got to be playing in a team that's going to be attacking and creating a lot of chances for him.
Yeah, Philly Hitchison says, what's your opinion, hypothetically, if 9 Ball was renamed #Cans? I've seen this debate on Twitter today, and a lot of people are saying it should be called Cans because it's a new thing amongst Newcastle fans. I think a lot more people would prefer to see it named Shearer.
I think you've got to go back to what it was. Do you know what I mean? You've got a legend that's been at Newcastle United. He's done everything for Newcastle. Do you know what I mean? Alan didn't have to come back to Newcastle. He could have signed for Man United. He could have signed for Barcelona. He come back to where his heart was. And I think it was quite disgusting what Mike Ashley and the other so-called puppets he has behind him, what they did to Alan, especially when he was a manager of the football club. Do you know what I mean? The way he treated him and what they've done afterwards, and to pull the name off the bar, and it's an ironic symbol of the football club, the football stadium. Do you know what I mean? You don't have any stands named after him. They've just recently put a statue up not that long ago. So I would bring it back. Do you know what I mean? You've got to, these people that love the club and are legends of the club, you've got to bring them back to the football club and give them the recognition they deserve.
Yeah, Brian Dawson said Joe Linton's not a striker. It's a fair point, but unfortunately, I think my view on Joe Linton is simple. Lee Charnley and Mike Ashley, in their wisdom, decided that they were going to bring in Joe Linton to basically show Rafa Benitez that they were going to spend money. It was almost the 2 fingers up to Rafa. They pushed him out, they got rid of him, and then they spent 40 million on a striker. And it shows you that the people at the football club, genuinely didn't know what on earth they were doing for me. And I just think it was crazy. It's a crazy waste of money, but I'll never understand that transfer in a million years. I'm not against the guy at all. Just he's been given that number 9 shirt. He's been given a horrendous figure on his back. and it's mission impossible for Joe Linton, unfortunately.
Well, I laugh about that, Steve, because only the season before that, they actually give Rafa the chance to go and sign him.
Yeah.
And Rafa, being Rafa, done his research and didn't believe he was good enough to sign the player for, I think it was 25 million. And that was only probably 6 to 12 months before him actually coming to the football club. So for them to, like you said, they obviously spent the money, but to spend 40 million, there has to be questions asked, because I know myself, by being in the game and being as a player and then being moving players as an agent, you know what goes on behind the scenes. And to me, you start to question that a lot of money is being given as a backhander somewhere along those lines. And it's very strange with what goes on, do you know what I mean? Because you look at the time the transfer went through, I think West Ham signed Haller for 45 million. And if Joe Linton was that good, why didn't a team that is on par with Newcastle at this moment in time, West Ham, not try and sign Joe Linton? Why was there no other club trying to sign him? And that's how I kind of tell if somebody's a good enough player, because you know by other clubs trying to sign the player. And obviously Rafa's got the knowledge, he's been in the game long enough. Look what he'd done at Liverpool, brought the right players in at the right time, the right amount. And he believed Joe Linton wasn't good enough for 20 million. So it baffles me why, like you said, Charlie and Ashley went out and spent the money. It was crazy.
Yeah, I just hope he has a good end to the season, and and he can at least gain something from his first year in the Premier League.
It doesn't really help though when Bruce has come out and said that he's not a striker, he's a winger, and that's a manager that's got to back your players. You don't come out and do that. You know what I mean? It's the last thing you do when a striker's not scoring goals. You don't then come out and say, well, I don't think he's a striker, he's a winger. But it baffles me, Bruce, because he still continues to play him up front. We'll carry on, move on.
Will Wilson says, takeover, new management, great expectations, but what lessons from the 1990s need to be remembered so that any new investment and high expectation translates into trophies? Good question, Phil.
I think we look at the 90s and you look at Kevin Keegan's team and the Entertainers. I think that was all about scoring goals, and Newcastle go into games, and the mentality of the football club at the time was, okay, you score one, we score two. And you can see in the games it was so entertaining. That's why they got the name the Entertainers. And I believe football's changed a lot from that. You can't just go and attack teams and constantly attack. So I think obviously the management will come in and they'll look at it and they'll realise football's changed a lot, and they'll know what's needed at the football club. We do need a solid spine at the club, and you do need a good defensive team. I think if Newcastle United had a solid defence at the time, I'm not saying they didn't, but if they probably had two more solid defenders, I believe they would have went on and win the league. Because you look at the game when we played Man United at St James's, we were X amount of points clear, and you're going attacking and you're attacking and attacking. And if you had drawn that game, it would have really took the stuffing out of Man United, and you still would have been, the gap between yourself and United, that still would have been there. But the mentality of the football club at the time was, let's go and win the game, let's go and attack them and beat them. Do you know what I mean? Instead of holding off and keeping your shape and bringing players back into the right positions and trying to stick out for possibly a 0-0, because Man United had nothing to lose. They had to win the game.
Yeah. Robertson says, Michael, is this the Saudis that you were on a while back? Just to remind people, obviously, you did say that there was interest from Saudi Arabia, and you got a bit of stick for it, Michael, on social media. A lot of people say you were making it up, but it's he who laughs last and all that. At least the Saudis did come back.
Well, that's the main thing. Do you know what I mean? I knew from somebody in Saudi who was close to the people that are involved that they wanted to buy a football club in the Premier League. Realistically, they wanted to buy Man United, and they had no chance. The Glazers were never going to sell it. So then I spoke to my partner who I was working with. He had a good connection in Saudi, a guy called Sami Al Jabbar. and we had to get all the documents, and we spoke to them, and I said to them, I'll get the documents, what's needed from Newcastle, and we'll try and bring a Saudi consortium to Newcastle and do it that way. But me being a young footballer, I don't have the clout to go to Mike Ashley and to go to the big wigs of the football club and do what's needed. Obviously, fair play to Amanda and the Reuben brothers. They have the clout. They've met Mike before. They can go and do that. And I'm grateful that they've done that for this time around for the football club. Do you know what I mean? Because they've got the connection with Mike. They've got the connection with the Saudis. So they've brought the two together, which is brilliant. Just a shame that I couldn't do it, because it would have been a dream. Do you know what I mean? To be behind it, and like anybody, it's a dream to make your club successful, and it would have been a dream of mine to do that. But you've got to give credit to Amanda and the Reuben brothers. It's their dream, and they've made everybody Newcastle fans' dream come alive again.
John Ball says, do you think rather than taking a big hit on Joe Linton, the best move would be to loan him out to maybe a championship side to build some competence and toughen him up to English football?
Me personally, Joe Linton will never ever go to a championship team. I believe in players who've got egos, and he would see the championship as a massive step down. A player coming for 40 million to the football club, to then being sent on loan to the championship and playing in the championship myself. I know players in there that would absolutely destroy him. They would go through the back room, and he wouldn't know what's hit them. So as a football club, I don't think they would allow that. And Joe Linton, being a Brazilian, I don't think he would want to do that as well. I think he'd end up going back to Germany or even Spain. I think that football suits him. The Premier League doesn't suit him.
To be fair, we saw him against lower league opposition in the FA Cup, and he didn't really knock down any houses in 2 games there, did he?
Well, yeah, he played against Oxford, and a lot of defenders there who you'd expect. I think Brucey at the time was probably thinking, I'll keep him in the team, I won't change him. Keep him in the team, he'll get a couple of goals and it'll build his confidence up. But I think it probably knocked a lot more confidence out of him than what it should have. If you're not scoring against lower league opposition, then you've got to start asking questions.
Jack Chater disagrees with us. Says Joe Linton was used properly in a progressive system, he'd be brilliant. The kid has been given too much pressure. You can tell there's a great player in there. I just think, for me, Jack, I think he's lazy, and he appears to be lazy. Maybe he's not saying he's lazy, he's a bit too strong. But I remember watching Chris Waddle back in the 80s, and when he was at Newcastle, he was accused of being lazy because of his posture and the way that he used to move. Is that the same with Joe Linton, or is he just not putting the effort in?
Well, Steve, there's been a big question about this, and I've questioned it myself. And there's one thing that a football player should not do, and he should never ever not give 100%. You could get somebody off the street that would be shit at football, but I guarantee he would work hard for the football team. Joe Linton has a talent, he's good at football, and I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be working hard for the team. And when you're not scoring goals, and when there is a lot of pressure on you, you have to work that little bit harder, and you have to do that. And you have to show the Newcastle United fans that, yeah, I'm not scoring goals, but I'm putting an effort in. I'm putting 100% effort in for the football fans that are coming to pay their good money to watch this football team play. And I think if he did that, I think a lot of fans would ease off him a bit. They wouldn't be so bothered about not scoring goals if they knew that he was putting 110% effort in every game.
I mean, to be honest, now it's in James Park. People didn't actually give him a hard time. People don't give anybody a hard time really these days. They maybe get a boo at half time and a boo at the end if the result's gone against them. But now it's mainly just groans and moans. You know what I mean? The apathy around the ground's been horrendous, especially when we lost 10,000 fans at the start of the season. The atmosphere became horrendous. But a lot of talk about Joe Linton again. Steve Thompson says, do you think Joe Linton will do well playing in front of an empty St James's Park with no pressure from fans? It might be just what he needs. Is that
well? It might be. It might be, yeah. Obviously, it's a bit like going to training, isn't it? If he's banging goals in training and there's no one watching, obviously it's a different circumstances, but you've got to visualize yourself in. You don't have any. Realistically, there's no pressure on him. Do you know what I mean? If he misses a chance, he's not going to have 40,000 fans chucking their arms and stuff like that. He'll get on with it and try and take the next chance. But he's a striker. He's got to start scoring goals. Otherwise, people have got a right to question him. Do you know what I mean? Strikers, and especially wearing the famous number 9, you've got to score goals. And you look at all the people that wore that number 9 shirt, and they've all been big hitters and they've all scored goals. And he came to the football club as a striker. He asked for the number 9 shirt, and he said he was gonna score goals and basically everyone would be proud of him. And so far, he hasn't been able to fill them boots. Obviously, there's a few games left of the season to still play, and hopefully he can show us really what he's all about.
Danielle asks, as you have spoken out against the Ashley regime, are you banned from the stadium like other legends? And if you are you looking forward to going back?
I'm actually very surprised I'm not. It's funny enough because I was listening to your interview with Steve Harrier a few weeks ago, and I was really surprised he was banned.
Yeah.
And then I'm starting to think, actually, I need to be quiet because I love going to the games and I love watching Newcastle United play. And it would be devastating if I was banned from going to watch my hometown club play. But I think knowing Lee Charnley, and he knows my background and stuff like that, he knows I'm a Newcastle fan. I think for them to ban me from the football club for having a say in what's going on. At the end of the day, Steve, I'm a football fan. I'm no different to the 52 or 40 odd thousand that turn up every week. I have an opinion. I have a right to say what I think. So to ban me from the football club, I think it would be a bit harsh, but I'm quite surprised that no one's really said anything.
Yeah. Emma, who should be the next manager, Pochettino or Rafa?
It's a good question because you've got two top class managers. Obviously, you look at Pochettino, what he'd done for Tottenham Hotspur. It was fantastic. He brought a team and built a squad from basically nothing, and it was just a shame that he couldn't win a trophy. Obviously, what they did when they played Ajax in the semi-finals, it was a great game, and then you obviously thought that it would give Liverpool a better game in the Champions League final, but it wasn't to be. They were so close to winning the Premier League and fell away. So you look at Pochettino, and he would be great for the football club. The way he brings young players through the club, the way he plays football, it would be what Newcastle fans would want. Then you look at what Rafa's done for Newcastle United. He's got unfinished business. He stayed at the football club when he didn't really have to, when they got relegated to the Championship. He stayed there because of what the fans had done. And the fans basically got him to stay at the football club when they got relegated because of turning up to the game, singing his name. And what Rafa done that I think a lot of managers haven't done, especially that Steve Bruce hasn't done, is he brought the players, the football club and the community back together. There was a big divide between the fans and the players, and fair play to Rafa and his team. He brought it back together, and you could see a lot of players that were interacting with the fans. You know yourself, Rafa, he was keen to have people in his manager's office after the game, speaking before the game with fans. He was a proper fan, do you know what I mean? And Rafa's run a lot of things at football clubs, and he didn't have to do that. So I believe if you're talking about them two managers, you could choose anyone. They would both be great for Newcastle United.
And no copyright. Please ask Michael Chopra, is he going to join for Indian football? I'm not sure what he means.
I think there's a big debate at the minute, Steve, about non-Indian passport holders playing for the national team. At the minute, it's only Indian passport holders, whereas you can get a POI or an OCI, which is an overseas citizenship of India, which is what I've got because my dad's Indian. And they're trying to bring them rules back into the country, and instead of giving up your passport and getting an Indian passport, they're trying to totally revamp the way the international stage is thinking. And I believe they have to do that for Indian football to grow. And if Indian football want to compete on an international level, then the government have to sanction this. But then there's another thing on that is a lot of terrorists would then come into the country on the POIs and the OCIs from Pakistan and that sort of thing. I think that's the only thing that's stopping them at this moment in time, allowing overseas citizens of India playing for the national team.
We'll give the last question to David. He says, will PIF buy out PL TV rights and make the team the best team in the world? Do you think PIF will do that?
I believe they would, especially with what's going on with beIN Sports. Knowing what the Arabs are like and knowing what them countries are like, they want to be seen as the best. And when they tried to buy Man United and it didn't go through, then they'll be thinking, okay, we'll show you. We'll buy another football club and we'll be better than Man United. And they'll want to be the best. They have standards and they'll stick to the standards and they'll want to compete with the top teams in Europe. And I believe it would be a great acquisition if they did actually buy the TV rights. It would go for millions, if not billions. Do you know what I mean? It's a huge amount of money, and that can only benefit the EPL. It would only more money coming into the English game. Would be more money for football clubs to then spend on good players coming in and improving facilities.
Andrew Malloy, we'll let you speak. Do you think the Reuben brothers are involved to move the stadium next to the racecourse, which would help with the infrastructure and develop the current stadium? I think the Reubens are involved because they're rich, but I also and because they're trying to demand a stadium. But I also think it's a great idea to have them around the table because they are involved with investing in the area and they're very good at what they do, and there is a possibility they will be able to help improve the infrastructure at the ground, but also, as people have said, potentially build new training facilities which Newcastle are desperate for.
Well, there's been talk about it since when Freddie Shepherd and Sir John was there. They were talking about getting a new training ground at Wolsington. It never happened. They eventually built a new training ground when I was there in 2000, 2002. And to go there and to see that it's exactly the same, it's unbelievable because you've got top class players there that need better facilities. You don't have a Premier League team that probably got facilities like a League One, League Two team. Do you know what I mean? But it's great that the Reuben brothers are actually buying land around the city and improving it, because you just need to look at what the City Group have done for Manchester and what they've done around the stadium. It's fantastic, and it can only bring revenue to the city. And if they improve the city, it's gonna be for better for us Geordies. Do you know what I mean? It's gonna be a better city. It's a better city to live. You're gonna be able to attract better players. That will only help the football team. You look at the stadium, Newcastle St James's Park is fantastic. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if people notice it, but when you go into the Gallagate, you're actually running downhill, and I think that's why a lot of time Newcastle shoot downhill in the second half, because if you look at the sponsor boards, it's quite a steep hill, Steve. And to take that iconic away from the football stadium, it would be hard. It's just a shame that we can't redevelop the East Stand and build it all the way around and that sort of thing. And obviously Mike's been clever. He's sold the land behind the stadium, and so you can't really build. It's heartbreaking, but hopefully with the new owners and Amanda and the Reuben brothers coming in and with their background and property, they'll know what needs done for Newcastle United, and they'll build Newcastle United how it should be, and it'll be a Newcastle United that'll be on the global world stage that it should be.
Fantastic stuff. If you're up for it, mate, we'll get you on next Thursday. I think.
Hopefully the takeover will be done by then, and we can start talking about that.
Well, I think what we'll do is obviously, if the takeover goes through before next Thursday, obviously we'll get you on before then. But we'll stick with it. We'll stick with the Thursday for you, mate, because people seem to enjoy it, and we've had some great questions. So thanks everybody for tuning in. You stay safe, mate, until we'll get you back on again.
Yeah, will do, mate. Stay safe, pal.
Cheers, mate. Bye. Great to have Michael on again. Thanks everybody for tuning in. And as I say, we will continue to do these throughout the lockdown period. And of course, as long as the takeover situation goes on, I'm enjoying doing them. and we've got a few more lined up. We've got John Beresford lined up for the next few days. He's just getting his head around the software. Supermac, we managed to get him lined up. But tomorrow night, we do have Neil Mitchell, the Geordie dentist. We always like to get a fan's perspective on, so that's tomorrow night. And then at the earlier time on Saturday, at 2 o'clock on Saturday, we're going to have Lee Clark. So that means everybody can tune into the Newcastle Aston Villa game that Newcastle United will be screening. So we'll do a pre-match show 2 o'clock on Saturday. I'm going to do a couple of non-related football ones as well over the weekend. I'm going to do a live Q&A about my new book, Every Boy's Dream, which I'll be advertising over the next couple of days. Brian Cockrell, the tax man, will be coming on to the YouTube channel to have a chat about his new book and his life. So Q&A with Brian Cockrell. And Gary Furby, who is the governor, the boxing governor in unlicensed boxing, but based in the Northeast, he's going to come on as well. He's also going to be talking about his part as Viv Graham in the new Sayers film, which will be filmed in Newcastle next year. So plenty coming up over the next few days. Yes, I will try and get Steve Howie back on as well. He's obviously been quite high profile today, talking about depression, which was great to see on ITV and how he coped with this. Please share this, though. If you click on share, just take 2 seconds to click on the broadcast, share it onto Twitter, share it onto Facebook, share it onto LinkedIn, what other social media channels you've got, just so people get a chance to rewatch it, because it goes straight on. Please give it a like as well. Any comments, stick them in the comments box. I hope the sound was a bit better tonight as well. A lot of people saying that the sound was a bit dodgy, but that is down to other people's connections. And of course, ultimately, from our perspective, not everyone has good internet reception as well from the players' side. Although Michael had great reception tonight, and he's in Jakarta, so it just shows you can never tell. But look, thanks for tuning in again. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Thanks for all your questions, and I will be back. I will be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with Neil Mitchell. Take care. Good night. God bless. I wish you well.